Hi there, everyone. Hi there, how are we all? Can you hear me okay? Yes, my microphone's working, I think. Let's just move that way. Okie doke. There's a good few of you here. Who have we got? We have, hi Sue, hi Beverly. Oh, Beverly, it's nice to see you back again. Are you crafting today or perhaps not? I've got a few things to get on to make today actually, so I'd be interested to see if you what you make with these kits as well. We've got Karen, hi Evelyn, Megan. Lovely to have you all here. If someone could just let me know if they can see me and hear me okay. Hi Valerie, how are you? Hi Rebecca. Lovely to have you here as well. Hi Jean. Right, I'll just wait for a quick thumbs up. Hi Deborah. It's nice to have you here also. There's a good few names. Oh, brilliant. Thank you, Jean. And Beverly's crafting later on perfectly. Oh, hi Janice. See you in here. That's great. Perfect. Oh, hello Helen. How's you? That's great. I'm pleased everyone can hear me and see me. Yeah, I always do wonder. Right, you can see what I'm using today. I'm using the Mariposa. Right, the sun's coming out in and out actually, so I think sometimes my picture's going to be a bit lighter like now, and then I think other times it's going to be a little bit darker. It was actually rained about half an hour ago, which was really strange, but anyway, so apologies if the picture sort of changes a little bit. That's great. Who have we got? Oh, Sharon as well. We've got join us and Elaine. Oh, brilliant. Lovely to have you here. So today I am using the Mariposa collection. I chose this because this is one of Lisa's special picks on her website, along with the oh, what do you call it? Along with the little envelope. Oh wow, Elaine, you're all the way in South Australia. That's amazing. Well, thank you so much. What's it? 3 o'clock in the afternoon here. So what time is it with you then? I'm not very good at my timings. Are you 12 hours out or are you 24 hours out? No, you wouldn't be 24 hours, would you? Maybe 12 hours out. So I'm just having a quick look on Lisa's website. The other special pick on there is the petal envelope. That's the one. The petal envelope stencils and the embossing folder with the die. It's an A6 set. That's the other collection that is on Lisa's special picks, along with the Mariposa. For both sets, actually, the layering stencils and the embossing folder are available separately, so you don't have to buy them as a bundle. The other thing that's sitting on there is the zipped bag with Lisa Horton Crafts on the front, which is perfect to keep either inks in or your stencil brushes. So you can find them all under the special pick section if you click on shop on Lisa's website. And the website is linked there on the QR code in the top left hand corner. So yeah, the layering stencils and the embossing folder are available individually, so you don't have to buy them as a pair, which is great. You can buy one or the other. You may already have one or the other and you might want to take advantage of the special pricing to complete the set, or you might only want one of the set. And with that in mind, I have created 3 cards, hopefully 4, we'll see how we go. So I've created a card with just the embossing folder. Actually, there's a couple of cards with just the embossing folder, if I think about it. There's a card with just the layering stencils, showing you that you don't need to use the embossing folder also. And this card here that I'm using the embossing folder for also. So let me think. Yeah, so I'm just trying to show you that you can use each individual item on their own to create a card and create something special. You don't need to buy it as a pair, although many people do. You don't need to buy it as a pair to create something lovely. Oh, hi Mum, are you just back from lunch? Oh yeah, I'd seen you'd been out as well. Oh, I'll have to have a chat about that later on. Sounds like you've had a good day. Elaine, it's 11:30 on a Thursday night. Oh, so you're good. Oh, I can't work that out now, but I can, hopefully I won't send you to sleep and you'll stay up long enough. Hopefully I'll keep it to an hour. And we've got Judy with us, who's at 7 o'clock in the morning from Abbotsford in, is that British Columbia in Canada? Is that right? Oh, we've got quite international viewers today. Hello to all of you, because there's a couple of new names there who I haven't seen join me before. And also we've got Sharon there, I saw sneaking at the top. Perfect. So let's get going. I've got, yeah, so I'm quite busy today. I want to show you quite a few different things. So I'm going to bring in my die cutting machine in the moment. I use the Sizzix Big Shot. So I can't advise on different sandwiches of plates and things and for other die cutting machines, but so if you have any questions with regards to the Big Shot, then I can answer them. If not, then somebody in the Facebook group is always available with a different machine to help you out also. So let's get going, shall we? Right, this collection here that you'll see is 5 by 7 inches, so it's a nice big size. The card that I'm making today, though, is this one is just smaller than 5 inches square, but the card I'm actually going to make is 5 inches square. So I want to show you that you don't necessarily have to keep to the full size of the design that Lisa has given to us. I will be making a 5 by 7 card a little bit later on. I'll also be making a square card with a circle feature on there as well. So I'll change it up a little bit. You don't have to be restricted to what Lisa gives us. Also with this design, this is one of the designs where it actually feels edge to edge, sort of top to bottom of the whole design. So there's no feature design in this. It covers the whole thing. So it'd be great as a background design also. With the benefits, actually, because some of our background folders don't have them, but we have the benefits of the layering stencils. And you can see from Lisa's little mock-up on the front here that we are able to stencil 3 layers of butterflies there, because we have 3 different colours. You can add more colours on, and I can show you at what stage you'd be able to do that if you wanted to create a whole myriad of colours. But the way that the stencils are set up, we can either actually I'll come on to that a little bit later on, because yeah, there's so much you can do with this actually. Right, let me get going. So this first card here is quite a little vintage little card actually. It's a nice sweet little card, because I realised I had some envelopes of this size that I needed using up, so I've cut my cards to this size, and I'm going to be making 5 by 5 inch. And you can see here the way that I was just playing. There's 2 different layers here. I'm actually just using the embossing folder to add colour and add ink. And the same with that one also. It would be great as backgrounds. It gives a really lovely vintage soft look, depending on the colours that you choose. The colours I'm using for this particular card are Antique Pink, Dolphin Grey, which is a lovely brown tone to it, and it matches really nicely with the pink. Then I'm using Garden Sage, Straw Hat and Loganberry. But you'll see on the side here that I've actually used a couple of other items apart from the sentiment that I've got down the side, which is the word strips. I'm also actually using another embossing folder, and this is the background script. This is part of the Christmas 2024 release. It's not a Christmas embossing folder. Ideal for Christmas because we all like to have sort of script in the background for Christmas, but you really cannot identify any of the words that are written here. You can see the words that need the right way up and the way around that they need to be, but you really cannot read any words at all. It's really, really cleverly done. So I'm going to bring in my embossing folder and let's get making. So this is, I suppose, a double embossing technique because I'm going to be using 2 embossing folders to create. Now, it's going to be really tricky for you to see. Now, perhaps if I show you this one, if I get the lighting just right, can you see in between the butterflies here where there's the background that would normally be just plain cardstock in the back? You can actually see some script in there. I don't know if my camera, actually, bear with me, hopefully I can get my camera to zoom in, and I think that actually picks up the detail a lot better. There we go. If you look at where the cardstock is in between the design of the butterflies, you will actually see some script. Now, I haven't made it super visible because I didn't want it to overpower the butterflies. But if I bring this one here, where all the pink would be, which would be otherwise just sort of where the cardstock would be left untouched by any design, I've actually managed to add some script from the embossing folder. Now, I've done a similar technique to this where I've actually used stamps on an embossing folder to letterpress before I then emboss with the main image. That's a video on YouTube that has had an awful lot of views actually. So if you want to see that one, that would be worth looking that one up. I think it's called How to Letterpress with a Embossing Folder. I think I might try and tag that to at least put a link in the video information a little bit later for you. So what I'm just going to do, I'm just going to move that slide out of the way. There we go. I can put your comments back on. And I'm just going to move. No, I might actually keep that there just to show you what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm going to start off with a plain piece of cardstock here. Say I've cut this down to size 5 by 5 inch. I'm going to bring in my script embossing folder first. You can see the details there. It's a huge amount of detail on this. This embossing folder actually is 6 by 6 inch. And what we want to do is use this as a letterpress initially. So basically as a stamp. So I'm going to put my card on the flatter side of the embossing folder. And on this, let me bring in something dark so you can see those details. There we go. There we go. So on the raised area where this script and where this detail you can actually feel raised up from the embossing folder, we would normally use that on the bottom of our cardstock. Now this time I want this to be on top. So we're basically going to be debossing this piece of cardstock. But before I do that, I just want to, not with that ink, I want to use the Straw Hat ink. I'm just going to rub that off because that would make that too dark. I'm going to use Straw Hat and I'm basically going to ink up my embossing folder as I would do a stamp. And can you see how it changed the colour of that text? You can see that along the top of the that embossing folder there. So basically, if you had embossed a piece of cardstock with this text, you'd be able to run your ink pad over your cardstock and it would highlight the script in that way. But I want this to be impressed into my piece of card. So moving this up now, closing my embossing folder down onto my piece of cardstock. Get a tight grip, because once it touches, you really don't want your cardstock moving on the inside, because that will smudge the ink, obviously. Then I'm just going to run this through and deboss my piece of cardstock. Let's move that to that side. So I can bring that back in. Now this text is going to be very faint because I've used a really light ink. But if I can bring that up, you can see that I've debossed that, because if I just turn that over for you, that's the emboss. The emboss, and that would be the right way round. But because this is going to be a very secondary image in the background, the fact that the writing is the other way around really doesn't matter. But the fact that I've put ink into that and I've pressed that into the design just makes that stand out a little bit. So we can put our script embossing folder to one side now. That's done its job for me today. And I'm going to bring in my butterfly embossing folder. Apologies, I'm just bringing in a piece of darker cardstock so I can put that behind. There we go. You can see the butterflies there. Now what I'm going to do is re-emboss this piece of cardstock with the butterflies. And this time I want to emboss the butterflies. So this time round I want the raised butterflies to be sitting underneath my cardstock. So with the inked text upwards, with the raised butterflies underneath, we are going to emboss this with the butterflies. Okay, but before I do that, I just want to add some colour to my butterfly embossing folder first. So to do this, I'm going to use the antique pink, and I'm just going to add a very small amount of colour initially. And I'm just going to pick up a stencil brush and some ink. I'm using antique pink, and I'm just going to colour the indent of the butterflies. So the reason why I'm using a brush is because if you were to swipe this over the top of these indented butterflies, you would get an image like this, and the area between the butterflies will be coloured. I actually want the butterflies to be coloured and not this area. So that's why I'm using a brush, because this will obviously reach into those areas that the ink pad can't. So I'm just going to see which area of the embossing folder that I'm actually going to use, bearing in mind I'm using a smaller piece of cardstock, so I don't need to ink all of the butterflies on the embossing folder here. Now the reason why I'm also doing a smaller piece is it means I can actually get this done a lot quicker for you. This would look amazing if you done this full size at 5x7. So it doesn't look like I'm putting very much ink on there at all, but I am going to be using the embossing folder to build colour. So I'm quite happy that that is sort of less ink than I would need at this stage. So remember, we have the deboss side of the card facing upwards. I can close the embossing folder down, and now you can just see where I've added a little bit of colour. And I'm just going to leave the camera close in at this stage, and I shall move it out in a moment. I'm just going to run that through. as gently as I can so I don't shake the desk around too much. So you can see here the areas that I would have added, that I've added the ink. So this is like our starting point. So when I bring that out and show that to you, what it has done by running it through that second embossing folder, it has squashed the initial embossing of the text, which is great, but it still leaves the impression and it still leaves the text there because we inked it. But what now stands proud are those butterflies. Okay, can you see that? And as we go on now to start colouring the butterflies, the text that is sitting on the butterflies will fade into the background. So it will actually give the text of the background a lot more. There we are. I'll give you a wider view now so I don't have to worry so much. So the text that's sitting on the butterflies will start fading into the distance. So what we need to do now really is to start building up the colour on these butterflies, and I can do that by adding more ink to my embossing folder. Now you may have realised that I've moved this out of the embossing folder, but because Lisa's folders emboss so deeply, it does mean that I will easily be able to replace that onto the folder and it will lock in place. You can see that there, I'm moving that. Once that locks in place, that's pretty much not going anywhere. So I know that I can replace that piece of card back into my folder and re-emboss as many times as I need to. So what I can do now, I can go back in and start adding more ink to the embossing folder to start layering up that colour. Now I shall use the antique pink initially, just to start building up the base of that colour again, and then I will go on to a darker colour in a second. But basically what you're doing, you're using your embossing folder as a stamp. So I've added the ink there, and I'm going to replace that back down and run this through my machine again. Okay, I'll come back also. Oopsie daisies. This sounds quite drastic. My machine's quite noisy these days. Okay, so I can show you that again, and you can see the colour is starting to build. Now I think what I might do is to use the Loganberry this time, so I can add more colour. So this is a stronger colour, and if I can use that in areas, perhaps on the not on the tips of the wings, I want to put a different colour in there. I'm going to put that down there, and in the bottom part of the wings of the design. And what else are we catching there? Okay, I'm just going to wipe that one away. Now you can do this as many times as you like, or you can add many colours onto your folder as you go. I'm also going to add some garden sage at this stage as well, and I'm going to put that into the top of the butterfly's wings there. Remember also, when you've got time to do this, adding less ink is probably the way to go, and do more layers, because that way you'll be able to have much more control over how the colour is built up. Okay, so we do that, add a bit of colour there and there. Right, now this is going to make a bigger difference now when we emboss. So again, I've locked my cardstock in place. I'm going to add my So that's back again. So we can see now we've got more colour building up. It actually looks better to me, as I can see it, than it perhaps does you at the moment. It's one of those things that you do sort of need to bear with. And I'm just going to add some more of the loganberry, and then what I shall do in a second will be it'll make the whole design pop an awful lot more. So make sure I get all the butterflies that are on the embossing folder. I'm missing that one a little bit. Okay. Once you get used to this technique, it sort of becomes quite addictive, because you think, what other colours can I add, and what different colour combinations will work really nicely. So it's a nice way just to build up the colour. And I'm just going to add a little bit of more loganberry at the bottom here, and then okay, a bit more like that, a bit of loganberry there as well. It's quite a nice way to actually colour your embossed images. It adds a little bit more control as opposed to embossing and then adding colour directly onto the paper. I think it's quite a nice technique that would lead you well into be able to colorise in your actual embossed image afterwards. I've done a couple of videos on that also, and I know that Lisa has, and it's something that, say, you do need to sort of, not necessarily practice, you need to have a bit of confidence with, and have confidence with your stencil brushes also. But I think doing it this way allows you to build up that colour quite carefully and quite slowly. Now what I'm going to do, let's see if I can just bring you back in a little bit closer. Oh, wrong way. Apologies. There we are. So hopefully, oh, there we are. So you can see where we're going this. Now what we want to do really is highlight those butterflies, and you can see what I've done here is use the dolphin grey. So this is a technique that you will have seen a lot of us do just recently. So literally taking the ink pad, I'm just going to move out a little bit. Oh, wrong way. There we go. You take the ink pad and you literally wipe it over the top of the card. Now you do this really lightly, and this can actually just transform the image completely. And it really highlights the embossed areas. And you can see the way that this is bringing out those images, and it really makes the embossed images come out, and it really makes the embossing and the text that we put on right at the start, it makes that really go into the background. So it sort of makes the image a lot, it makes more sense, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Because you say, you reach a stage and you think, what am I doing with this? But you do need to persevere, and it does all come right in the end. And as this ink dries and sort of gets knocked back to the background, you can really start seeing the butterflies come out and really stand out really nicely. So that is actually looking really nice. It's looking really vintage, the way that I wanted that to look. So I'm just going to come in and doing exactly the same with the loganberry. So that just knocks back the brownness of that and just really sort of tones the butterflies into sort of that pink nature there. And just as that ink dries, you can either use a brush and just blend it out a little bit more, or just allow that to dry. Can you see how that's sort of really bringing those butterflies out? Now you'll notice at this stage here, this is an area that would have been sticking outside of the embossing folder. I knew that was going to happen. That was fine. So if I bring in, yeah, if you see this card here, this is why we've got this nice torn edge. And I thought that that just really worked with like the vintage feel. And I think if you were to make cards with the, there was a postcard stamp, and I can't remember if there was an embossing folder with it or not as well, but there was, that would work really nicely with this detail, I think. Now, I think what I might do, just to finish this off, I'm just going to add some, oh, excuse me, I'm just going to add some ink around the outside just to give that faux matte and layer feel. And I think that just sort of ties everything in, and any details that may have got lost on some of the butterflies just gets caught with this brush there. And so it's a very different way of using your embossing folder. It doesn't give you the nice clean image that we perhaps come to expect when we do our stenciling. It really does give you that nice vintage detail for the background, but it gives you a really nice base to either layer onto. Gives you a nice base as a background, and as I say, if you change your colours around, you see that can sit on there. If you change your colours around and have a little play, you can come up with all sorts of lovely combinations with that, I think. But the antique pink and that dolphin grey, along with the loganberry, I think works really well. And say the sage green is just muted enough to work. Now, to finish this off, I'd like to keep that detail, that torn detail there. So that works for me. I thought I would use the word strips just to give us a nice clean and simple sentiment on there. And that, I mean, I've put this one on this way because I think that works better with there. Maybe on this card I can have that there, maybe I can have that along the side, or even just add that into there like so. But I think that's a really nice way to use a background. You can obviously perhaps even do this with the interference inks as well and add some sparkle on there. So that's one way to create a card using just an embossing folder. And again, I'm using this on the butterfly, on the Mariposa. There we've got so many other, oh, apologies, I keep going the wrong way with my lens. There we are. We've got so many other embossing folders. Some of the foliage ones would be really great to work on using greens, whatever. That would work really well as well, I think. So what I'm going to do is pop on the next slide for you. So this is the next card. I'll just bring in the bits and bobs for that, and we'll just put these to one side. I'll make sure I photograph all of these for later on. So this time around I'm going to be using my interference inks, so I have my blending sponges to go with them. And let's see, I've got myself organised enough. So this time round I'm actually using Vellum, and I'm using the interference inks. I'm also using, just to make up the mats and layers, just to let you know, it's the stitched torn squares for the square layer around the outside. I've used a circle from the Nested Stitched Bubbles just to cut myself a circle of vellum. Okay, and then I've used 2 dies from the Nested Torn Circles to create a frame. And the reason why I mixed and matched the circle dies is because I was able then to create a frame that was a little bit bigger. And as we know, with vellum, we have to find our ways to adhere it so you can't see the glue. So it just means that the circle of vellum is just the right size to fit in that frame so I can attach them together. So, and then the words that I'm using are the XL sentiments, the happy birthday ones. And I'm mixing and matching with the sentiment strips, the everyday sentiment strips also, so you can see what I've done here. So I've got this in a couple of different ways. So there's a couple of different, I want to try a couple of different techniques on the vellum with you. So I haven't stuck this down because I'll use the same background. Now this is vellum, as you can see here. As you can see the light going through it. And all I've done is colour tinted the vellum. I've used I used a peachy vellum actually. It was Lisa's vellum, and I colour tinted it with the interference inks, and then I just straight embossed and then used some white Lisa's white pigment ink over the top to highlight that. So I'm going to do that one for you so you can see how that works. And I'm also, well, I didn't cut out any white vellum. And I think also what I might try and do is to stencil onto the vellum as well. Just shows you, so as you can see that we have that blend, and that the stencils also work and we can blend with onto vellum. So I'm just going to get out my tacky mat. I'm going to take off, oh no, that is white vellum. So just get myself organised here. And is that white? No, that's blue vellum. Okay, so we have I've managed to put down the colours of the inks on the bottom there. So this card that I used, the inks that I've used on there, you can see is ripe mango, golden sun and milk chocolate roses. With, I did put a little bit of charcoal gold on as well, just to darken that up in the centre, and you can see that that gives a really nice summery colour, which I thought was really nice with the orange. And I've just die cut the words with the same colour as the frame there. So I'm going to blend some ink initially onto my vellum. Oops. Right, let me take that away. We can bring the chats down. Right, so the first thing I want to do, this I'm just working onto pink vellum here. This works onto any colour, to be honest with you, but so we've been treated to having coloured vellum by Lisa, so that's what I've used. And I'm just going to colour tint this a little bit more with the interference ink, so we do end up with that lovely shine on there, and that interference ink that will the mica that comes through. So I'm using the Mermaid Shimmer, Mermaid Lagoon, Lavender Fields and Sweet Treat. So we can just colour tint this. So no real plan as to how I'm doing this, just add lots of colour so we can really go for that. And really, you might want to get yourself a piece of cardstock just so as we don't end up with fingerprints, because obviously being vellum, the ink does dry, but it just takes that little bit longer because it's not a porous surface. The ink just stays on that surface just that little bit longer than usual. So I've just added some colour onto there now. It's going to be hard to show you the mica as that comes through, but that's got a really lovely sheen. Well, you can just about see that lovely sheen sitting on there. Now what you can do is to just go ahead and emboss that straight into the embossing folder. To bring back my machine sitting here. Again, this is another way that you can create with this collection, but just using the embossing folder. You don't necessarily need the stencils. And as I take that out, you can just see just the impact that that gives with just embossing and adding that little bit of colour. And because we're working onto vellum, you have the light through that. So if you were to make an aperture card out of this and have that light going through, that would be so pretty. Now, what you can do just to highlight those embossed lines, instead of rubbing over with a black ink, as we would perhaps do on cardstock, you could add just a little bit of white ink over the top as well, and that just looks really, really pretty. And if I were to add this onto a card blank, you can see those colours really pop out, and we can put a pink frame around that. And again, we can add just a really simple sentiment. I really don't think that needs too much more than that. You could, if you wanted, just to enhance the colours, you could put a darker colour behind. Again, that just intensifies all of those colours that little bit more. So it's entirely up to you as to what the look that you want. Either way, I think works really, really nicely. Now, what I was hoping to do for you as well, and I'm just, how are we doing for time? Not too bad. What I might do just quickly, I'm going to bring in my blue vellum, and I'm going to get my stencils. Now, what I will do, we have a set of 9 stencils in this, and if you look through them, you can easily see the different layers of butterflies that we have. So we can see these 2 stencils create that layer of butterflies. We have 2 layers for the butterfly bodies, and then we have these next 2 stencils which create these 2 layers of butterflies. So I think what I'm going to do, just to save time, because I am going to stencil all of these layers in a moment, I just want to show that we can stencil onto vellum as well. So I'm just going to put these stencils on here. So these are stencils 5 and 6 that I'm using, because I'm only interested in these 2 larger butterflies to go onto this vellum. So I've just picked out these two stencils. So I'm going to add, I'm using interference inks for this again. So I'm going to stencil these 2 larger butterflies and this little one here as well. Now what you can do, you could either just leave the stenciling at that, because then when you emboss you get the detail of these butterflies, or you can go ahead and add more detail on, and I'm just adding a contrast colour there just so we can see that over the top. There we have lovely butterflies on there. Remember, you could have also colour tinted the vellum first before stenciling over the top, in the same way as we did with the pink one there. That would work equally as well. And then what we can do is find those butterflies on the embossing folder. And just run that through also. You will have the other butterflies obviously embossed, but not colour tinted, but it just gives you that option to highlight particular butterflies from the design. So if I show you there again, we have the embossed of the butterfly, but only a couple of the butterflies are actually highlighted in colour. And obviously with these ones, we have that shine and the shimmer of that mica on there as well, which sits lovely onto vellum, and it dries so well. So again, we can just add that to a card. I mean, this one is so much more subtle, but I think really pretty also. And we can add our sentiments onto there. So that's another way that we can use our embossing folder. We could also, just to intensify the colour a little bit, we could put that blue layer underneath as well, and again that changes that a little bit. So you've got 3 different looks there with the vellum. Again, it's really nice just to play and just see what different colour combinations. And again, you can use your matte blending inks for this as well. You don't have to use the mica or the interference ink. So again, you use whatever inks you have sitting in your stash. Actually, that works really nicely. I like the blue and the white there. That looks really fresh. So again, that can be just another way of using just your embossing folder. Actually, if you buy just the stencils, you could just stencil onto your vellum also and add that to your card. So it shows that you don't necessarily have to have both components of the collection. Okay, so we'll move that aside and we'll get ready for our last card. Our last card is a straightforward stenciling, and it's so pretty. I'm just going to move my tacky mat away again. I'm going to bring back in my magnetic mat, actually. So this is the next card that we're going to do, and this is purely just stenciling, but I've stenciled and I've masked a little bit off. So this is just a one layer card, which again I really like to do. But it creates an awful lot of impact. I'll show you. This literally is just one piece of cardstock, and I've stenciled, masked and stamped straight onto that. So this is something really straightforward. So if you do have restrictions on postal restrictions, and you can't send anything too heavy or too bulky, this would be ideal for that as well. So I have my piece of cardstock. I'm just going to put up the slide for this one. And the only other things really I'm using for this are the craft stamps, the mini sentiment stamps. So I'm using stamps because I like the way that they look. You can use dies, you can use whatever you like on top of this. Instead of creating this mask that is just flat, you can use a piece of cardstock on here. Yeah, it's entirely up to you, but say if I can give you the techniques for this, then you can go ahead and you know how to adapt them. And then you can see the colours that I've used there, just 4 colours, 4 straightforward colours, actually quite similar to the ones that Lisa would probably pick, some of Lisa's favourites. And I've done a little bit of edge highlighting there. Well, can you see that? A little bit of drawing with just dot and dash lines, and I've used Lisa's fine liner pens as well, which I reach for every so often, and they're so useful to have in your stash. I'm not sure, I think they were on sale a little while ago when Lisa was on clearing out the warehouse, so I'm sure some of you will have those. Now the other thing you'll need for this is a piece of copy paper. Nothing fancy at all. And what we want to do is just tear ourselves a piece of this away. And the more creative you are with the shape, the more interesting the effect it's going to be. So you can see that was the shape that I've used here. And I'll just show you. That was the exact piece that I moved, that I was stenciling over. So So you could reuse the same piece, or you can use a different piece each time. So the cardstock that I'm using is, actually we want to cut that to the width that we actually want our final piece to be. It doesn't matter about the height at this stage, but it will be quite useful to have this at the final width. So I'm just using the one that I've already done as a guide. Okay. And I'm just going to use this as a band. You can put it straight across, you can put it up the top, you can put it anywhere. But before we do this, just to make sure that we have it in the right place, just bring your stencil in. Make sure that you have your stencil in the right place, which is there. And I'm just going to mark along the bottom. So I'll take that away. So this is, oh, can't see that, can you? There we are. So I'm just going to mark along the bottom. So that just gives me some perspective as to where I can put this central band. And I think what I might do this time, I might just make this a little bit slimmer. So the beauty of copy paper is it's really easy just to adapt as we go. So I'm going to put that as an angle, and I'm just going to fold that round as a band on my card. So I know that that's not going to move and that's not going to go anywhere. So I'm just going to check that all my stencils are in the right order. There we are. So put them back as they are. So now we can get stenciling. Before we go straight into our stencils, I'm just going to add and colour tint this cardstock a little bit. So I'm going to use some of the yellow. I've got Juicy Pineapple, Tranquil Waters, Dusty Rose and Dolphin Grey. And I'm just going to colour tint from the band upwards. So I'm using the band just to blot off the majority of the ink, and then I'm just coming on to my cardstock and just colour tinting that. So I'm not worried about what this looks here. I just don't want these sort of unblendable blobs, as I call them, on my main piece of card. So that's what I'm using the band for that. And I'm going to do exactly the same underneath as well. So we do that really quickly. You can extend this blending as far onto the cardstock as you want. I'm not going to go too far because I'm sort of conscious of the time that I have with you. So at least I've added some colour tint there as well, which gives that little bit of shading along the band there. So we can bring in our first stencil, make sure we're lined up again, and away we go. So first in, I'm stenciling with the blue. I think it's one of your favourite blues, this one, Mum. It's Tranquil Waters. Maybe because it reminds you of the sea, but it is just a stunning blue. Now, as you know, when I stencil, I don't generally, especially with the first layer, I don't create a nice solid look in the aperture. If that's the way that you like to stencil, then absolutely you go ahead and do that, because again, at the end of the day, this is all about creating something that you like to look at. And I'm stenciling most of this, although I am aware that some of these butterflies are sitting on that band, so there's no point stenciling those really, is there? So that's why I'm leaving that one free. Move that up there. And again, I stencil number 2, and we can put those details onto those blue butterflies. Now I'm doing tone on tone butterflies. You can have so much fun with these and really go to town, adding so much colour into each butterfly. Again, there's just so much that you can do, but if you want a quick background, again, these stencils are perfect for that also. But before I move on, I'm just going to add a little bit of dusky pink just into some areas of these blue butterflies, just to add a little point of difference. Not too much, just adds a nice little detail, I think. So we can see those first butterflies appearing. Now, stencils 3 and 4 of this set are the bodies and the antenna of the butterflies. So these will actually be the bodies for all of the butterflies. So if you were just to pick out a couple of them, just be aware that you'd want to pick out the right bodies on this particular stencil. But I'm coming in with Dolphin Grey for this. It's a nice contrast against the colours that I'm putting on, but it's not stark like a black would be. Although if you were perhaps doing monochrome and you were doing a whole set of like pink butterflies and you put black in for the bodies, I think that would look amazing. So I've done that. And stencil number 4, again, is a little bit of detail on those bodies. So I'm just going to come in a little bit darker. Again, tone on tone with that dusky grey. Not dusky grey, Dolphin Grey. Perhaps that could be the colour of a new ink for Lisa. There we are, Lisa. I've given you a name there, Dusky Grey. Okay. Oh, missed one there. Okay, there we are. So back on to stencil number 5. So this is the one that we used on the Vellum before. So I'm going to come in with a Dusky Rose. Now I think I was a bit naughty there. I didn't actually clean my stencils from before, so there may be a little bit of interference ink already on here. So who knows, there may be a little bit of mica appearing. Now this large butterfly in the centre, some of it is masked and some of it isn't. So I'm only going to stencil the area that isn't masked. There's no point working and creating something on something that you're not going to see. So now I'm using this stencil to create all pink butterflies on this layer, but these butterflies are quite spread out enough and quite large enough for you to even pick out each of these individual butterflies in different colours if you wanted to. Just because they're all on one stencil, it doesn't mean that you have to do them all one colour. I am at the moment just for ease, really, just to be quick, but it'll be a great way for you to get some extra colour in. So stencil number 6, and this is where we can add our detail for the butterfly, so I can come in a lot darker. Now this stencil has got detail for these larger butterflies, but it also has got a couple of little smaller ones that, again, you could pick out in a different colour if you wanted. Or I'm probably going to do these but in pink, but a lot paler than the pink that I've already used. So I'm adding that detail in. Again, this tonal way of blending works so well. Just make sure I'll get this one down here. Okay. There we are. That's really pretty. You can see just the way that the amount of colour that just builds up, and just this little bit of yellow in the background just works really nicely. I mean, you can use a different colour. You can perhaps use a blue. Now, in doing that, I did move my stencil a little bit. That's me being clumsy. There we are. Yeah, you can what was I saying? Yeah, you can, I've used a yellow in the background, but you can use any colour. You can use a blue for the sky, you can use a green perhaps for fields behind, or any colour really. Any colour. You could create a sunset behind maybe. There's this butterfly here. That one is masked, so I don't need to do that one. But actually having them sit on a nice white crisp background as well works just as well, I think. Or how about stenciling them onto black with your interference inks, and they'll take on a whole different life altogether. So I'm just stenciling to get these done quickly for you. Now these stencils where the with the detail, I'm actually putting a lot of ink on here. You can spend time blending as well if you wanted to, and I perhaps would do another day as well. But just before I move on from there, I'm going to add a little bit of pink into these as well. So just change the centre of those butterflies, just working into the centre part of where those wings are, just going round and round like that. It just gives you a little bit of a colour tint. A little bit on that one as well, and perhaps just a little one into there. It's so pretty. I really love the way that this has all come together, and I love the different sizes. It really does give you that idea of sort of depth. Now with this card, I'm not going to emboss this, and you'll see why in a second, but if you were to do this and then emboss it as well, this is just going to sort of really accentuate how 3D and just the different layers of butterflies that you have, which Lisa's been quite clever in getting that detail on there for us. Okay, so they're the little eyes. That's just a little final detail going on. Put those to one side. Now the fun bit is that we can remove our mask and we're left with that band in the centre, which again is so crisp white, which I think just really makes the rest of that design really pop. So I'm just going to trim this down to size, which again will make it look an awful lot better. Oh, my hands are really inky today now. Okay. So that's our finished image. And now what you could do, you could leave these blank. You could create lots of these in different colours and have your bands put in different places and whatever, and just leave them sitting there ready to then stamp a sentiment onto. And where are they? Here we are. So, I mean, we have the option to stamp and make this card as personalised as we want to now with all the stamps that Lisa has brought to us. That's not going to fall. Okay, and die cuts as well, actually. I mean, a die cut would sit on there brilliantly in black as well. Now, I am conscious of the time, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to just hand stamp these sentiments on here for you. Maybe I should change it up a little bit. Maybe I should put, I've got happy. Maybe I'll do this. Maybe I'll do something a little bit different. So I'm going to take off the happy. I'm going to put that one back in a second. I'm going to use, yeah, let's do something different. You. So I'm going to put you there. Yes, I want to do that. Oh, it's sticking to my hands now. Right. So I'm happy with that there. So I'm going to ink this up. And I think just stamping straight black onto this, you really can't go wrong. It just looks so clean onto the white, doesn't it? So I'm going to stamp that. Doesn't that look good? I really like that. Really love the effect that that has, just straight on onto white. It just looks so clean. And I'm going to use Happy Birthday to, and put that on my block. We're going to put that either there, or we can put that there. I might stamp that up there actually. And the great thing actually, if you were to do lots of these, or perhaps, you know, 3, 4, 5 of them to have sitting there, they're going to look totally different. This one looks different to this one that I've just done here, even though I've used the same colours on the same stencils in the same place. You will add your colour differently, different intensities, and you'll blend it differently each time round. So there we are. Happy birthday to you. I think that just looks, that to me, that looks printed. And when you put that with a nice black border around the outside, perhaps you could put a couple of little pearls or something to sit there as well, just to finish it off. If you think about it, if you look at this butterfly, this would be easy to stencil, emboss, and then fussy cut out. And then you would be able to add that into a position there as well. So that, I think, works really nicely. Again, that's just using the stencils. You don't need to use the embossing folder for this particular one. Again, showing you that you don't necessarily need to buy the whole collection. Now I'm just going to do a bit of freehand drawing there, just to enhance along the edge of that mask. You don't need to do this. You could do it all the way around the outside. You could do squiggly lines. It's entirely up to you. Or you could just leave it blank. If you wanted to, instead of just masking it, you could actually use a piece of cardstock and wrap it round the back before you mat and layer it onto your card blank as well. So there's that card finished as well. Lots of different ideas. I've got through lots of different things for you. Hopefully it's not been too much of a rush. There's lots of different things you can do, lots of different looks as well actually. If I can bring most of these in as we go. What have I done with the rest of them? Remember, we got these different coloured vellums also. And we also have our vintage ones somewhere. Where did they go? Over here. Okay, so a little vintage card sitting there as well. So I've gone through a lot today. I know somebody did request to use and do more techniques with just embossing folders. So hopefully I've been able to sort of just give you a couple more ideas with just embossing folders today as well. And again, although I'm using the butterflies today, you can really adapt this to any of the designs that you may have. Oh, hi Bonnie. Hi Grandma Bonnie. I didn't see you there. Okay, you can find the Mariposa Stencils Lisa's pick in the store. Yeah, the best way to find that is to go to the top of her store, and where it says shop, you'll then come up with lots of different areas of the website that you can go to, and right at the very top there it says special picks, and that's where you'll find the Mariposa at the moment. Or you can just type in Mariposa and with the search engine. It's a great price at the moment. If you buy the whole set together, you're saving £8. The folder is normally $8.99 on its own, and it's $5.99 at the moment. The stencils are usually $17.99, but they're $12.99 at the moment. So you're saving £3 on the folder, £5 on the stencils, and if you buy the two together, then it's a great saving altogether of £8. So well worth it. I think you'll get an awful lot of use out of that. Again, I think I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 cards today that I've got ready to sit in my stash. Right, I've gone on long enough. I've kept you a lot later today than I would normally do. I thought it was going to be a quick demo today, but I got a bit too involved. Thanks so much for your company today. I actually really enjoyed that. Remember, it's Friday tomorrow, so Lisa's Friday Night Live will be 6:30 on YouTube and on Facebook, and Lisa's channels also. There may be some demos on tomorrow. I'm not entirely sure, but say it's worth tuning in anyway. There'll be lots of chat and some fun there too, I'm sure. So enjoy your weekend, everyone, and the rest of your week, and I shall see you next week. Take care.